what happens when you purify your body, your mind, your spirit. Something miraculous. The body begins to heal itself. Welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast, where each week we explore new ways to heal your body from the root, igniting your inner healer. You are a medicine. And now, here's your host, Robin Stebbins.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Reframing the Narrative, and we are so thrilled to have once again one of our favorites in the truth community, Medicine Girl. And this is the long-awaited part 2, since we talked way back in 2025 when we were waiting for what the last final shoe to drop would be in 2025. And spoiler alert, they kind of pushed whatever it is into 2026 just to keep us on edge while they're tanking the economy in the meantime. But Robin, so good to see you again. You have just been on fire, writing so much great content on Substack. There's so much to talk about there. But I'll just tee things up and ask you what's been going on since I think it was September, back in the 30s of our episode count that we saw you last. What's on your mind? What's burning for you that you just are really after, besides what you and Agent have been doing with the Shadowban library?
The library, yeah, the library for sure is where I'm really focusing a lot of my attention. But Jake and I were talking before with all the whole glitching, and it's more about realizing that there's always going to be an endless sea of rabbit holes that are meant to distract you, and each rabbit hole has a brand new shiny hamster wheel, and not getting just lost in the endless pursuit of finding out the hidden information, because they're just going to keep moving the needle back and just moving it back just a little bit more, you guys, just a little bit more. I think that's the whole QAnon strategy.
And lately, the latest distraction is obviously the Epstein files, and it's talk about a big nothing burger. I don't know if you've looked into that at all, but I think it's closely related in some ways to the work that Agent's been doing looking into Pizzagate.
Right.
But what he's doing is actually looking into the real details, and certainly there have been others out there. Mouthy Buddha comes to mind. He put a great documentary out there about this. So that's real, and I feel like this is just the WWF pro wrestling version of truth to give people just enough of, well, there's something going on, and we're going to get those bad guys, don't you worry.
Yeah.
But it's just one more distraction.
It's just one more distraction that's meaningless. Like, we know all you guys are pedophiles, and we know you're all doing dark stuff. I don't want it in my head. I don't want to know what you're doing. I'm just assuming it's horrible. And, after being in a relationship with a narcissist, and then after interviewing Dr. Juliet Engel, when you go in and try and fix things, you make it worse. Either you point out the holes where they were getting caught so they can firm them up and fill the dam so that they're a better narcissist or a better pedophile or a better child trafficker. Other than, why is there such a big industry? Who is consuming all of this material? And you look at just this degradation of society, that's, I think, more of the issue than, who's on the list. They're all on the list. Otherwise, you don't get to be, have a seat at the table.
And something that Jake and I were chatting with Agent about recently, there's the famous line from George Carlin, "It's a big club and you ain't in it." I feel like he was even mocking the masses listening to him, because you don't get on that world stage without being compromised in some way. And I have no doubt that George Carlin went to those Eyes Wide Shut parties and saw it all and participated, but he was that faux truth teller. He gave a little bit of truth about how the system's rigged, but not enough to name names or do anything that was meaningful. So in a way, his comedy was very much like the Epstein files. Like, it was giving you a little bit of truth, but not enough to matter.
That's it. And the comedy is the most dangerous because you really let your guard down. And so I used to enjoy, way back when, watching Dave Chappelle, because he just kind of, you felt like he just said it like it is. And then he left for South Africa. And then when he came back, there was a different Dave Chappelle. And now he's really pushing the narrative in a really subtle way. And I think George Carlin was doing the exact same thing. They're pushing the narrative like it's a big club. Don't worry yourself about it. You guys are peons. There's nothing that you can do to affect anything. Ha ha ha. As opposed to that's the opposite of, I think, what is true. I think we do have a lot of power. I think we do have a lot of say. And they want us to think the opposite and just, it's been going on since the beginning of time, so you guys can do nothing about it.
Just imagine if we turned the tables on them and we said, well, you don't actually have a big club. It's a small club of a bunch of people with no moral compass who do absolutely depraved things, and you're sociopaths. And the real big club is humanity.
Yeah.
And we're tired of being divided by all your distractions and your bread and circuses. And, we're going to quiet riot on you. We're not going to take it
Yeah.
anymore. And imagine it if we could do that, but we always have all these preset dichotomies, these binaries that people just jump into. You criticize Biden, well, you must be a Trump hugger.
Right.
You say something about whatever. You say something about
ICE.
ICE, yeah, then you must be whatever. People just come to these conclusions. They just jump right at you, and they can't take a step back and say, wait a second, we have a lot in common, and we're on the same team.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I think but I do hear it happening more and more. The second it becomes trendy, you're going to see everyone jumping on that bandwagon like they've been saying it the whole time. Like I hear people now saying, well, there's no such thing as vitamins, and, even talking about the periodic table of elements, but which is fine. I don't mind. I don't need the credit, but you can see how fickle everyone is. They'll sell their grandmother for $1 if they, get in the limelight, literally. But once being a good moral person that has empathy and respect for Mother Nature and all things that are divine, you start to see a different person open up. They might have come to it for the wrong reasons, but who cares? At least, they're there showing up, and then maybe they can start to see their own light open up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And also too, you were mentioning it's true on both sides of the equation with the fake stream media and then the official alternative media, that there are people out there who will do anything for the clicks and the likes and the followers, and of course selling their own brand of supplement or getting people spun up in all sorts of meaningless activities, or going off grid and building little teepees for themselves and showing the man that they're not using their resources.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're not actually doing anything useful for society. This is all by design. It's as Jake was saying, there's a binary choice in most of these things that are put into the public eye.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly where they want us. The murmuration of the birds, like flick over here, then move over here and over here. Nope, over there, over there. And it's working. They had a walkout at my son's school today. Somebody sent me, Billie Eilish had said, you're not an illegal on stolen land. And they all had signs that said that. It's like, click 1, click 2. They are playing everyone like a fiddle. And it's worked so long, but I don't think they understand the human spirit either. They're lizard brain, like you said, they don't have a moral compass. They don't understand that we actually do things for the betterment of those around us. There are people that do that. There are people that have a pure heart that really do genuinely want the best for everyone.
It's certainly not emphasized in the public eye, and it takes a certain sort of person to really be in service to others. And I think that's been one of my big revelations over the past year or so is, and it was inspired partly by a book that I've yet to finish, but got the best bits out of, which is called The Second Mountain. And so many of us are put onto this path of, okay, you're supposed to do things by a certain age, and you're supposed to get a job, get a certain sort of career ladder, get married by a certain age, have kids, whatever. And most people try to climb that first mountain and die on it because that's all they know and that's all they've ever thought of. And
Mhm.
sometimes life brings you to a place where you realize how hollow that mountain was, and those goals were, and that actually being in service for other people is the real mountain. That's the life defining purpose of what you should be doing with your time and energy. And I think that that's what we all collectively are trying to do in our own way.
Yeah, I agree completely because it's I think what we're after is what's ultimately satisfying to our soul, and you don't know what that is until you achieve it, until you reach that. And it's the times that I've actually been with somebody, not helping them the codependent type of way, but just you're sitting with them in their darkest hour. You're not helping them, but you're showing them, hey, you're not alone as you walk through this. It's an incredible feeling. And then that person lights up, and then that, other people light up. Or for me, working hospice, being there at the end with a person, and you start to see how short our lifespans really are, how quickly it goes. We get what, 4 or 5 sets of 20 years. And if you've already had, lived three of them, you're like, geez, got two left. What am I going to do with those? Maybe two left. What am I going to do with it? Like, I want things to matter, and not just matter for me selfishly. Like I want to be happy and live on the ocean and surf all day, but to also, leave things better than I found it.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more on that point, and especially with the idea of our time is finite, and the time is the one resource you never get back out of anything. And that's one of the big goals of all these distractions. And we've talked about it many times on this podcast, where you're paying your attention. It's not just what's occupying your mind and influencing your behavior, it's also that time you will never get back that you're spending on this shiny quarter they're waving in front of you.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, your eyes open for the first time and they're going to close for the last time. And do you want to have them seeing kittens falling off of buildings and, other people's fails, or do you want to go outside and see things that are unpredictable and unexpected, and connect with people, I mean, I connect with everyone. The gas station person, and I'm not talking to them like, oh, let me connect with you because trying to create a hierarchy, which is I'm just genuinely interested in people now. And if you would have told me that 20, 30 years ago that I would be like this, I would have thought you were crazy. But I mean, people are pretty amazing. I mean, just when you really start to hear anyone's story, I mean, it gives me just this sense of wonder. Like some of the things people have been through, some of the storms they've gone through, and then they're still standing. I mean, we're a resilient bunch of whatever, humans, individuals, and then collectively.
And I really like what you said about that, and that we're so compelled by everyone's stories. That's why we get so easily glued to whether it's the silver screen or the Black Mirror or whatever it is. We just love stories, and we're attracted to other people's stories rather than kind of writing our own. But
Yeah.
if we just stop for a moment and think about what we have done or who we are, that can be compelling to other people if they hear if we step back sometimes. And it's just, we need to remind ourselves that we need to keep writing those stories.
Yeah.
And it's not about accumulation of things or how much money you have in the bank by the time you've climbed that first mountain that PJ was talking about, but maybe banking the memories and those great stories that we're all capable of writing in our lives. So I really like what you said there, Robin. That was
I
inspiring.
I really love what you just said because you made me think, I was telling you guys earlier, I mean, you're catching up to me with a number of podcasts, and I started in 2018. But I would really like to interview people like older people. My mom's 92 and she's come out of it. She's come out of her haze and she's actually started to awaken at 92. You know, it ain't over till it's over. And just to hear her story or hear, you know, I had a 107-year-old patient that just passed away. And even just talking to her or her daughter, it's the the impact of her life because you would think, and I'm guilty of this too. I saw her taking care of her 100. Well, I met her when she was 99, and she's like, "Do you think she could live to be 100?" And I said, "Well, if because she was on a lot of drugs and a lot of vitamins and supplements and insure." And I said, "If you guys want to change anything in this whole med regime," she's like, "I'll change anything. I'll do anything." And so got rid of everything. And you think, well, what's the point of living from 99 to 107? But this woman changed my whole understanding of life because of the way she lived her life. She was never angry. She was never upset with things. She never got invested in the TV or the ice thing. You know, it was just she was just loved. And every time she saw me, she would sing, "I love you," you know, this little song that she made up. How amazing is that? Just to always be pleasant and always be happy to see someone and always give them this boost, this light. And that changed me. How many other ripple effects did she have? You know, and who are we to ask what your purpose is?
And I'll also borrow a thought that I got from Mark Batterson. So I've mentioned him before on our podcast, Chase the Line, as well as Gradually Then Suddenly. But he's talked about in his writing that many of the things we do have generational impacts beyond us. And what we achieve now really sets up future generations for their greatness and what they're meant for. And when we fail to achieve what we're here for, then we're robbing future generations. And I think that what you and Agent have started building, and we're just tagging along for the SBL, the Shadow Band Library, is part of one of your guys' great efforts.
Well, I really love that you said that because, I mean, imagine if our kids didn't have to spend 50 years to get over all the trauma and all of the indoctrination and all of the stuff that they kill their spirits with in school and their peers and everything else. Just imagine what they could do. So we're building almost generational spiritual wealth.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that
Wow.
this one thing I just want to say, even before you and Agent had announced it, when Jake and I started this podcast and we had decided, yeah, we're going to do this and we're just going to try and see what happens. One of the things I said to him at the time, and he can back me up on this, we got to figure out a way to get the truth out there in a way they can't delete. In a way that it's going to be there permanently. And I was like, I don't know how that is, but we
Yeah.
need to figure that out. And it's so awesome that you guys have built that and are continuing to build that.
And that's what it is. So it's something that you can't stop. You can stop a movement and you can stop, you know, these big platforms and censor everything, but when one person is downloading it permanently, and I really want to do the print on demand for people like me that want, I mean, I just need a copy in my hand. The thumb drives scare me because you still have to go on a computer and the computers are not ours. But it's just, yeah, it's being able to create this, I call it, you know, like an on-grid, off-grid. So we still are part of society. We're not sequestering ourselves and bubbling ourselves off from the cancer. We're saying, you know, we're going to heal all of it.
Yeah, and I think that the print material is going to be so important because they can take our electrical grid away. They can figure out ways to kill our computers, but the
Yeah.
print word will always be there if we all make an effort to preserve it. And whether or not there was a library in Alexandria and there were secrets lost there, I wouldn't doubt if there were, but that also could be part of his story that, much of this wisdom was hidden, obscured, or destroyed before that. But if there's enough of us with this written down somewhere, the truth can't be denied. And I think that that's what makes a lot of us looking backwards past the early 1900s and making sense of everything before that that much more difficult, because what is written is scant. And especially when we look at the old world and we look at evidence, physical evidence that says, wait, these people were more advanced than what we give them credit for. Why would they build these great structures and then be horse and buggy and mud streets? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And if only there had been an effort to preserve that somehow that couldn't be denied, then we'd have a better understanding of the world that we're in today.
Agree. And that's why they want us so dumbed down. And that's why they're poisoning the water, not to kill us. They don't kill their customers, but to, make us so that we're not able to understand. Like we can connect to all of that understanding, all of that wisdom. Like, it comes through us. It is still in the collective as an energetic frequency. So we can tap into, that's what I mean by our potential. And even on our call last night, I was mentioning, I just talked to this guy, there's some dude that owns a walnut farm outside of Stockton, and we're just chit-chatting. And then I was like, we got on the subject of fuel efficiency, and I said, oh, there's that guy that, made the car that was on hydrogen or water. And he's like, oh yeah, I saw something. I saw this little engine schematics, and it could run on exhaust. So I put half a cup of gas in, and I ran my truck for 200 miles on a half a cup of gas. Just
That
using
gentleman
the
said
exhaust.
that?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, first of all, don't tell anyone. We just have you go to like an underground railroad, like, now do my car. And then it goes down on the railroad, goes somewhere else. But, those types of things are everywhere. There's 1,000 different ways to run your vehicle. We're just obsessed, like, oh, we got to find that one, way to patent it. Or, we were also talking about the ether, and how I was talking to this aerospace engineer who hired me to do a session with him. And then at the end, I was just like, hey, by the way, is it possible that all the fuel they say they're putting in the airplanes is true? He's like, oh, no, that's a hoax. That's 100% hoax. There's just a minimal amount of fuel in it for the takeoff. That's what all the fuel is used for. And then once it hits the ether, it's just basically floating up there for the most part. And so it's just more directional, and to keep it exactly where control towers had told them. So all of this stuff we have access to. We don't need necessarily, like Jake and I were talking about, you don't need to constantly be seeking that external, the holy grail. Like, we're going to figure it out only if we get that book or that information that was lost. Like, it's all around us.
That desire to have everything, in, to quote Radiohead, in its right place before you take action, and to have all the knowledge, and like to have a PhD in every single thing that you're considering doing before you do it. And like, let's say you want to go on a hike, you have to go out and buy hiking shoes at REI. You got to get the right shorts, or you might have an emergency pack and all this. All it does is prevent you from action and finding your own way. And you never get there. But I just had to say that. But I think
the analysis paralysis.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're supposed to be a good human citizen, and make sure you've got all your boxes ticked before you go out into the terrifying wilderness. You got to have water and whatever else they have.
Yeah. But one thing I think this conversation is pointing to is something that's been on the two of our minds recently, which is abundance, and just focusing even on the idea of efficiency kind of reinforces the paradigm of scarcity, that we have to use resources better. And of course, we don't want to waste resources, but I think there's paradigms and there's systems that we can tap into that go beyond the ones that we're given, which are all about scarcity, and that hits person against person,
Yeah.
community against community, whatever, what have you, block against block. And we need to break beyond that. And another paradigm that has been driven into us and is biblical really as well is the whole idea of sacrifice. Like,
Hmm.
um,
For sure.
and I think we see that with those people that we're talking about with no moral compass. They really love to sacrifice certain they worship certain entities or whatever, but they're they always believe that there's like some energy that they get from sacrificing certain
Yeah.
victims. But not to go too deep into that, but we need to go beyond this energy and this resource paradigm and this sacrifice paradigm in order to really arrive at something that would blow our minds at in our current world. And I think it's achievable. And so maybe like what we are just touching on, doing something in this generation for the next generation. Maybe it's not achievable in this generation, but maybe the next generation will get there, to quote Martin Luther King, kind of.
No, I think we can get there in this generation. I absolutely do. We have been collectively paying our attention through, if I work at a job and I go by Starbucks, I'm paying pedophiles and psychopaths my energy. So I'm contributing to that part of the energy. So once you start to shift that, it can change in an instant. So we're not paying our light energy to the darkness because that's what they feed off of. And when you're talking about abundance, that's it. We have to have the Darwin's, ridiculous theory of evolution that I got to get mine before the next guy because there's only a scrap left for a million people. And, the way they set up overpopulation and the way they set up the resources. They can't have us know that primary water is the most abundant water. You couldn't use it in a lifetime with every single person on the planet running the water 24 hours a day. It's abundant, but they have to make us think it's our most precious resource, and you got to turn on your neighbors if they're watering a lawn, and so you bring the morality into it, the scarcity. They do the same playbook. So once you see the playbook, it's just like yawn fest. It's so boring. You guys are doing the exact same thing over and over and over. And the more people that start to see it, they're going to lose their smoke and mirrors. It's not going to work anymore. The emperor has no clothes, and we peeked behind the curtain, and it's just some old, gross, ugly dudes doing bad things.
I couldn't agree more, and probably at least one of those images in many people's minds would be Bill Gates. I mean, he deserves all the ridicule he gets. What a disgusting person he
What a
is.
disgusting human being in all ways, shapes, and forms. And all of them, all the corporate psychopaths that only want more. They're hungry ghosts. They're not even human. A
Yeah,
human, you have to see there is no animal that behaves that way. So they're even lower than the lowest of the lowly animals or
couldn't agree.
snails.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But I think that what you two were touching on with abundance, and obviously it's been a reoccurring theme for Jake and I in our podcast, but it's so powerful to understand, and it's so hard to untrain your mind for scarcity because we've been raised into that world and that mindset. I literally earlier today I had to snap myself out of a little funk because I was like, wait a minute, you're living in scarcity. Look at all this opportunity out
Yeah.
there. And what are you doing? You're obsessing over one thing that didn't go your way. That's stupid.
Yeah.
And that's just how we're raised. And even though I recognize it, even though that's been one of the big aha moments over the past year for me, I still have to try to untrain my brain for it. That's how powerful that indoctrination
Oh,
is.
it's so powerful. And it's so power. I mean, even when I took my son out of school and homeschooled him for a year and a half, it was the most anxious I have ever been in my life. Like, what am I doing to him? And like, oh, he's got to learn this math and science. And, even though I know for sure it's all BS, from start to finish, what they're doing is stealing their childhood. and they're killing their spirits. That's the whole design, so that you feel hopeless. That's why we have superhero movies. You guys can't save yourself. You got to hope Superman's going to come and rescue you, or the knight in shining armor, or the whoever, Star Wars. It was the rogue heroes that are going to save the masses.
It's
And
always, let's go ahead.
no, go ahead, Jake.
No, I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have is to sit and cool our heels while we're waiting for a savior, and that look at the way the MAGA faction has just laid down and tolerated all the craziness that we've been subjected to over the last, if we're going on 6 years now, right?
Yeah.
With the COVID malarkey and Operation Warp Speed and Fauci and everybody. No, there's been zero trials, zero apologies, zero reprisals, nothing. And that's one of my fears, or I think one of my predictions for this whole Epstein thing. In a way, it's good. We can mock people like Bill Gates for worrying about maybe giving Melinda an STD or whatever is going on, but we can't get too attached to it. But in a way, I think it's going to be a nothing burger because nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to pay the price. And psychically and spiritually, when society does nothing about this kind of thing and they get away with it, we're going to end up having been told with the revelation and the method. Now everybody knows the world is run by pedophiles,
Yep.
by
Yep.
depraved people. And then what are you going to do about it? The psychic message is, oh, well, I got to pay my bill. I got to go to work. I'm not going to do anything about it. No one's going to be held accountable. And that's permission,
Yep.
unless we do
That's
something and
exactly
change.
right. And that's what they want. And that was what the whole pronoun thing was. Because I kept thinking, like, why are they doing, why is this whole trans thing getting pushed? It's so that they can have it all on the outside, which is our consent then. Because if we don't know about it, we can claim ignorance. I didn't know this was going on. They have told you. Now they have told you. So now if you continue on status quo, you are giving your consent. And that, for whatever reason, I have seen time after time, they'll coerce you into doing something, but they have to have your consent. Whether that, if their religion truly works and they worship Satan and they actually get power from it, or they just think they do, I don't know. But it is that there is always going to be the consent, and there is always going to be the legal workarounds if you don't want to do it.
And that's just another aspect of the paying your attention. I'm so glad you brought that up because it connects a lot of these discussions we've had that when you're paying your attention to a certain story like the Epstein files, you are consenting to everything they're downloading into you and you're saying it's okay. Whereas if you put your gaze another direction and you focus on something more important and fulfilling for your life, then it doesn't exist. I literally never look at CNN or any of those fake stream media sites anymore. I haven't for a long time. And it's like whatever the story of the day is, I don't care. And it does not affect me. It's only a distraction there to hook your attention in and waste your time. It
Yeah, and by paying your attention to it, you're bringing truth to the lie. So you are legitimizing their delusion and you're giving them the platform that they want. Because Bill Gates is no one, he is nothing.
mhm.
But because we see him on the screen and people put him on this pedestal, like, or either we're scared of him, they don't care if we're talking negatively or positively. It's just as long as we're talking about it. The second we could give a crap about any of these disgusting human psychopaths, then they lost. We don't care what you're doing. We don't care about what you're talking about. We're not watching you. We're doing our own thing. We're not fighting amongst ourselves. We're growing food. They can't stop that.
The thing
Can't
they
come
hate
to
the
my
most
door and
is
force me to buy a cup of coffee.
exactly. They hate being ignored. That's the
That's right.
worst thing you can do is like especially with celebrities, but I think it runs through that whole mindset
Yeah.
of people who fancy themselves as important is just ignore them.
Yeah.
Go away, bro.
Yeah.
And then it's just you have
You're
to
no
invite the
one.
vampire in, right? So, but I would like to maybe shift gears a little bit, but riffing on what we were just talking about, there no savior is going to come for you. That's a mindset that we see about the way people uh, approach their health as well. And I see it in my own life around me. There are people in my life that look for outside solutions to health issues, basically kind of like they're an automobile. Oh, well, I've got this uh, corroded connection here in my battery. Call AAA. I've got this or that situation. Oh, I got to go to the chiropractor. Chiropractor's going to prescribe me supplements. It's all outside stuff. And I think one of the core problems or issues that we certainly us on the podcast recognize is the idea that we have an immune system and that we need to supplement it. We need to boost it up like it's this great entity. And uh, really, I'd like your take, Robin, on why what is known or what we believe to be immune system and why that is or isn't true, and then maybe why we don't need to look outside ourselves for health and what we can do. And maybe that'll lead to a follow-up question that I kind of touched on before as well.
Yeah. So they have to make up the immune system because that makes all of the vaccines legitimate because you have B cells that remember the invader and then they build up these immune cells. So when you're attacked again, you have the ready to go, boom, boom, boom. They can knock it out because they know it's a bad guy because your body's too stupid to know the first time. Had to get sick from it, and then it's like, oh, I better build up some immune system. So it's all a lie. I don't think they have a clue how the body runs. They can do some predictable outcomes with testing, and so they can say, see, this is what happens if you don't have enough insulin, your blood sugar gets high. So they can manipulate things on the surface level, but they have no idea how the body operates. But this is how they can say things like, well, now we need to boost mitochondrial production. So you have to take this supplement, this NAC plus, because it boosts mitochondrial production. It's all just smoke and mirrors and lies to sell you these super cheap, I could buy them by the ton chemicals that I can put in a capsule and make money on top of money. And then I also make you guys more sick if you take them. So then I'm going to 10x my initial investment.
It's so funny to, I love what you're saying there because it reminds me of back in my youth, the first master's degree I had was in biochemistry, and in my 20s studying the stuff in the T cell invasion scenario and looking at a biochemistry book. And I remember looking at it going, wow, how did they figure this all out? And all I see are cartoons, but
Yeah.
how did they, how did they do, like, how did they know this? And then they try to obscure the situation by, oh, we're going to look at this one tiny little thing. We're going to have all these little studies about it. And that's one part of the cartoon. And then we
Yeah.
put the whole cartoon together. And I just can't help but make a parallel to space and everything that they tell us is going on in the planets and the solar system, all cartoons, all CGI. Again, it's a story, it's a narrative that we're being told, and it all fits into that. We're imperfect, we're in this random, chaotic, meaningless world. All these pieces fit together, but I just couldn't help but think of this cartoon from a textbook from years ago and going, wow,
Yeah.
how do they know this? But all I see are these cartoons.
No, and that's exactly it. What they want us to believe in, which we talked about last time. The word lie is in belief. So they're only working on our belief because they can get us to believe the lie. And so they want us to believe in these cartoon characters. There's something else going on with the whole cartoon world that I'm not quite certain on. I'm going to write some substacks on it, but yeah, there's something about animation and getting propaganda through animation that's especially effective. but it's cartoon characters, and that was what I asked actually in nursing school, because I said, well, if that's the case, then why do they give you a tetanus shot after you step on the rusty nail if you've already had a tetanus shot? Like, why are you adding more poison? Isn't the whole vaccine to show the body, like, if you come in contact with rust, it's bad. So, you're going to know what to do because I've injected you with some of the poison. And a bunch of other stuff too, because it's never just the tetanus, it's the Tdap. So you got the tetanus, just diphtheria, pertussis, because you need that after you stepped on a rusty nail.
Yeah, and just to take a quick detour and get us back on the road again, but I hadn't really thought about it before when you asked the question, what's up with cartoons? There's and I haven't followed him in a while, but there's a great YouTube channel called Understanding Conspiracy, and Paul Hobbs has written a book called The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, and he's done a extensive research into Nephilim and Nephilim spirits. And one thing that's really common for people who take DMT is they see these jesters. And he talks about how that's very likely the disembodied spirits that are in the dry places. And I wonder if that is somehow linked to cartoons in the cartoon world and getting messages to impressionable youth that way. So I just want to get that thought out there. That looks like that's sparking a thought in you
No, it
too.
is. It's because I've had a lot of this, and I was under anesthesia, and I was in the astral plane, and it's cartoon characters. I've seen them before. I have done the 5-MeO DMT and a couple times, but I saw these without being on anything. I've seen the astral plane, and it's cartoon characters. I'm so glad you said this, because then when I was under anesthesia, I woke up and I said, thank you for bringing me back, because they were trying to keep me there. These cartoon characters, and it's not an enjoyable place, but I think that's what, I can be completely wrong, but I think when you transcend, when you die, they want you to recycle back in, come back, consent, and it'll be like Jesus or some savior figure that you have worshipped, and they'll convince you to recycle back into the soul trap planet, the prison planet,
Rather than elevating beyond that, right?
rather than elevating beyond that and not contracting with a savior,
Yeah.
right? So we're not seeking that external worship to save us out of here. We realize we're not coming back. We don't need to come back.
Wow.
Well, there's a lot of ways to look at that, but I certainly think, and you're not the first to talk about the cartoon world that people have seen under the influence, and I think that that could be very much related to the cartoon push on TV, which we know is its own form of sorcery.
Yeah. And every single virus is a cartoon character. Outer space is cartoon characters. Inner space, atoms and protons and neutrons and all the stuff that they convince us is how it works, looks the exact same as outer space. Those are all cartoon characters. So it's not the actual reality. And if you look at, there's work by Dr. Jerry Barzinski on actual entities taking over bodies that, people that have mental illness can actually see. And they can see these entities stacked up outside of a bar waiting to inhabit people that get really drunk or really inebriated or really, on high on drugs.
Yeah, I'm convinced that's a thing, and no matter how you come at the idea of disembodied spirits, I do believe they're out there and they're jealous of our living, breathing bodies that
Oh
they don't
yeah.
have access to, and we it goes back to that consent thing, right? When you say yes and you let them in,
You let them in.
they'll wreak havoc and have a good time with it and leave you worse for the wear. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
And you can
And
feed and water the demons if they have inhabited you with the alcohol, and they will try to puppet you around to get more and more alcohol, but they will leave. The easiest way is to not drink.
Mm-hmm.
alcohol or take drugs of any kind that are mind altering, which, the whole psychedelic community, they think it's saving lives and curing depression. It's not. It's just opening your soul up to things that we have no understanding of.
100%. And I think that that goes to a very comprehensive list that you put together in one of your recent Substacks of all the different ways the controllers limit our lives, control our lives, do everything they can to keep us in this really tiny box of existence. And I think that kind of bringing things back around to our earlier conversation, bringing us into a place of scarcity where outside of that box there's so much more abundance and other ways of living. And I think that is the solution to, as I read through your comprehensive list, many readers would say, so what then? And it's like, well, recognize the abundant world around you and go be part of that.
That's exactly it. Because what we're doing is we're staring into a microscope at that one little speck that's wrong. But they've blown it up on all these scrying mirrors, the screens and the big television sets and everyone's phone and our computers and like, look at this, look at this. It's horrible, it's horrible, it's horrible. When, I was talking to one of my friends and she said, if you and I had just been going on our hikes this whole time and hadn't, listened to any of it, no, we wouldn't have known anything was going on. It would have just still been nature is still nature. And it's the majority of it. If you stacked all the humans together end to end, they would take up like Dallas, Texas, and maybe a little bit on the outskirts of that. You know, it's not what they're telling us it is. And so we don't, like you said, your whole show, reframing the narrative. We don't have to accept and consent to the one that they're giving us.
Totally.
And
And
look how many there, look how, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm like, that's the whole point. Like, look, that's the masses, that's the collective. We don't have to collectively disengage and stop buying things. We have to collectively understand that. That's what they're scared of. That's why they need us on fluoride and calcified and dumbed down and drunk and, liquored up so that we don't have that understanding.
And they want us
and we
just,
limit our potential. Go ahead,
yeah.
Jake.
Well, they just want us distracted from seeking that out. So we need to seek out that abundance and find our own way. And to, of like we were saying, to whether it's in the astral plane or not, to elevate ourselves beyond just that momentary pleasure or distraction or the divide and conquer, all of that stuff.
All of it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Seeing
And
each other as the enemy.
yeah.
That's the other big thing. You're stupid because you took the vaccine, but I'm smart because I took the horse paste. Or, you know, it's the same thing. And it's just like we're all in this together. Like we all make mistakes. Every single one of us. How do I know? Because you're human. So let's move forward with that understanding. That's a beautiful part of us. Otherwise, what are we? AI? I don't want to be AI.
Yeah, and I think speaking of AI and tying back to the SBL, the shadow banned library, if you look out there and you see the trend towards the way people seek information and interact with AI these days, you can easily envision just a locking down of all information and only having the approved narratives available through this AI and all these LLMs that they're generating out there and that they're building. And I was just watching a video from The Good Citizen. I don't know if you're familiar with The Good Citizen on Substack, but he shared a video and it was really about how um, Zionist bent, all the Zionist forces were openly saying we literally need to program LLMs so that basically you will have um, no other angle on
Yeah.
whether it's history or whether it's, who is good and who is bad or anything like that. And so we really need to kind of like a BitTorrent, get information out there and consciousness out there. And the only way to go beyond it is not to fight it directly. And it's basically come up with a better system or a better consciousness.
Yeah,
get out of it.
not to fight any of it directly, because
Yeah.
again, that only strengthens it and gives it legitimacy. If I'm fighting against something, I'm saying you're worthy of my attention to fight against, instead of, you're not even worth my thought. And then again with the AI, it's subjugating our intelligence, our intellect, our creativity to, like chat and saying, okay, you tell me if this is true or not, which is where it's all going. Because I had an instance where my son's friend was over, and I was telling my son, I can change lanes without hitting any of the reflectors. Really proud of that. And then his friend was like, that's not possible, because I asked chat. And I was like, but I can show you in the physical that I can do it. You can see, you can hear when I'm hitting the reflectors, and you can see like I can glide through and hit it in just a certain angle that I'm not hitting any of the reflectors in my extended cab Tacoma. I'm like, it's a big truck, so it's like takes a lot of skill. But the argument wasn't, okay, show me, get in the truck and show me. He's like, nope, I already know you can't do it because I've asked the Black Mirror.
So how do you, and this is an open question, and maybe you and Agent don't have an answer now, but it's a question worth considering. How do you fend off or stay in the cracks outside of the gaze of Sauron and AI from coming to try to shut the SBL down, or to take, to subjugate it in some way, or to, I don't know, just to deplatform it. I think that, again, it goes back to that question that I posed to Jake almost, more than a year ago now. How do we make this permanent? How do we keep this truth out there?
Keep it in the collective so that each person is responsible for things that light them up. Download the books now, because they are coming for us. There's no question in my mind. And unless you're an 80-20 person, meaning 80%, I'm going to give you 80% of the truth, and then I'm going to get 20% is what I'm getting my instructions from, to get you to poison yourself or transfer your wealth or dumb down your power, or, put a bullseye on a bunch of people's backs, whatever they would like. So at a certain point in time, you won't know I existed. You'll forget about me. You'll forget about the information, which is why it is so important to get things downloaded, print on demand, because what I'm talking about is evidence-based reality. Anyone can start to see it. I'm not looking at studies, nor will I ever look at studies, because they're owned by corporations, and they're going to give you an answer that they want you to see. All of it is to sway you. It's all snake oil salesmen just trying to capture your attention and convince you of this and convince you of that. Where once you start to see it, once you start to see the playbook, once you start to see, like, oh my gosh, I'm powerful, I have discernment, I can start to figure this stuff out. I don't need to ask Robin all of these questions, like, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? You start to realize it's so simple, because, in the last Substack, I had all of the things that they're doing. I'm trying to add it up, add it up, and add it up, and like a paragraph of solution, because it's the same solution that I write on every single one. It's not complicated.
Or like the movie I Am Ben-Hur,
Right.
when we're all the
Exactly.
hero, right? When we're
Ex-
all preserving this information.
and that's what it comes down to. When I say, to join my peer membership, which is now going to be on the library, I have to get people to say there is no hierarchy, meaning I am not above you guys. I have just figured this part out. That's my brilliance and my perspective of all of the insanity that I went through in my life. What's yours? Because that's equally as important and equally brilliant. And once people start to see that, they start to open up. And that the woman on the call last night was talking about, just some random stuff. And then she was like, oh, and about the fuel efficiency. And she gave, all of these like really easy to do things to start doing now. So that's the power of the collective, not the hive mind, but we're, realizing we're all connected to one another and teasing out that brilliance from each and every one of us. That's why they want us fighting. So the second you come at me and tell me, whatever, I'm a bad person if I don't accept the narrative, or I think ICE is propaganda and it's all stage theater and politics are the two wings of the same bird, then you're after me, and we can't ever see each other. And I think the power is in when I finally just, we let our armor down and we sit there and we truly listen, and we're actually engaged because we're interested in what the other person has to say.
We're so we're so indoctrinated or conditioned to want to prove that we're right all the time. And I think that's like, just think of the debates that you do in school, like in middle school or something. You divide up and like you take this position, you take that position. And then in college, it's even worse. You're always defending your thesis.
Yeah.
And so we're so conditioned to just jump at things. So like when you come out and you say, well, DMSO is a solvent and it's gonna do this and that, it's actually a negative, it's not a good thing. Or you say vitamin D3 is cholecalciferol is rat poison and it's it's bad for you and you've experienced that. That's how you discover that. People will come after you because they always feel they have to take a position and they don't step back. And so yeah, that's how we end up in defending these things that are indefensible, like vitamin D3. Well, would work for
Right.
somebody.
Like well, and that's where they get into it. It's the testimonials, which is the same as the cartoon characters. Well, I cured my cousin's brother's sister's cancer, and overnight their eczema disappeared miraculously. Like, well, that's not possible. A lot of times when you really pin down the testimonials, they're not true. Or it's they stop doing 50,000 other things, like they quit smoking cigarettes and they quit drinking alcohol and they stop going to Jack in the Box and then they took a vitamin A and they're like, "Oh my God, the vitamin A, it's a miracle." Like that is what is happening over and over and over. That's what all of the books that, are telling you. Well, I ate bison and rice. Somebody was just adamant, you can cure renal failure if you eat just bison and rice for 10 years. You can only eat bison and rice. But it's not that. Like the guy that wrote the book quit 55 other things, started the change the diet and attributed it to that. We're so indoctrinated into that mindset. It was that one thing I took, which is where they hide God. God, the unknowable, the unattainable, healed your body because that's the only state it knows, not because you're a good person, because you gave it the proper conditions. That's it. There's no mistakes. There's no morality. It just is.
Yeah, and everyone's looking for that easy solution in a bottle. That one thing, can I just take this one thing or do this one thing instead of can I make a series of better choices with my life and do one thing one step at a time to be where I want to be?
That's the whole crux of it. Can I drink my nightly wine, and can I slam my espressos and stay healthy with this miracle NAC pill? That's usually what the long and the short of it entails.
Couldn't agree more. Well, I know we're getting to the hour mark here, and I guess I just ask you what's on cue for the Medicine Girl Substack, and sounds like you've got some interesting deep dives coming into the cartoon world, but what else is
Yeah.
burning on your mind these days?
A lot of people are asking about hormone replacement therapy. A lot of women my age are feeling the need to do hormone replacement therapy. So I'm going to go and talk about the myth of menopause. Menopause isn't even a thing. It's a lie to sell you hormone replacements and drugs that will cause all sorts of really damaging problems. Not to mention trans issues either way with hormone replacement.
Wow, mind blown already.
Yeah.
You mentioned your group and your calls, but I don't think you named it. And just I'd like to give you an opportunity to plug that as well. So you have the Medicine Girl group. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where people can find it and what it entails? How do you join?
So how I was, we're trying to kind of work the Substack system before they finally kick us off because it's only a matter of time. They're doing the biometrics, and so I'm I'm trying to get people to stay on Substack for now, and then if they are a paid member on Substack, they get a free peer membership, which then they can have the true chats with Medicine Girl, and or if you are a member of the Shadow Band library, you can join in on the true chat. So you can ask me anything, but it's more just, a place where we can go and share our brilliant ideas that have come through us and ideas of how to get out of it. One of it was I brought up another Substack I'm going to work on is the one that's running the show is the insurance companies, and the ones that will do the final coercion is the against medical advice is the insurance companies. So it's okay, so then if we don't have medical insurance, which I pay $800 a year not to have insurance, but that's a pretty risky line to walk on. But people in the group chat were like, there's got to be a different way. There's other companies that are addressing this, and how could we have catastrophic because you're not going to get the daily aches and pains and the things that you would run to the doctor for to get a pill to make you sicker. It's for catastrophic. How can we do that with catastrophic? And we had some really good ideas on the call last night. So that's what the truth chat's about. So if you're a member of the Shadowband Library, it's every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and Friday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for those that are overseas. So I get a lot of people in the UK and Australia, New Zealand that are on that call, which is it's a totally different. I mean, everyone's so polite on that one. And it's a different kind of vibe, but it's the true chats I absolutely love because I learn so much from people.
I can't wait to get on one of those. We were
Yeah,
just
I
talking
really
about
want you
that. Yeah.
guys on. You could be the guest speakers, guest of honor.
Count us
I'd love
in.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I will count you in anytime. You guys are welcome anytime. But
That's amazing.
yeah, the
Well,
more time I have to queue it up and let people know you're coming on, that would be great.
we'll definitely talk about that offline, and we'd love to be a participant many times over. And I'll just say too, we'd love to have you back on our show whenever it makes sense. This is the part two, but it can be part two of many. So always enjoy
Yeah,
these conversations.
me
And
too. Yeah, you guys are really, really intelligent. I really like what you're doing over here at Reframing the Narrative. I just love your perspective on things. It really gets my mind going. And after we have these conversations, I feel boosted. Like I got a boost of energy. That's the point of like coming together and being in this kind of energy space together because now we have more energy. We're thinking now.
totally. Totally. And of course we'll be in regular contact anyway, being part of the Shadow Band library. But
Yeah.
just want to thank you for your time today. Really great conversation. Yeah, I know it energized Jake. It definitely me too. And just look forward to more of this and joining your weekly chats as well. So just thanks for all that work you're doing. Man, you are pumping out so much material on Substack. So thanks for
I know
doing all that.
4:30 to 9:30 is when I write, and then usually in the evenings too. But yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. And yes, absolutely, you guys, we can, me, we can change this thing. We can change the trajectory of it. I know that for sure.
Absolutely. Jake, any parting thoughts from your side?
Let's do it. Let's change that trajectory.
Let's do it, Jake. Let's do it, Jake. We got this.
Yeah, we got this. Like me
Mhm.
last time I said, yeah, well, I'm not running. I'm making my stand right here in, Crazyville.
I
So
know. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
still
let's
here
do it.
too. All right, you guys.
All right, thanks again. And I would just say to our viewers, stay tuned. We have a lot more coming next week and beyond.
Thank you for joining us for another incredible episode of the Medicine Girl podcast, where our mission is to ignite the power within so you can hear your divine wisdom and follow your soul's true north. Fear is loud, peace is quiet. Listen to the softest voice. We are all walking each other home.